news last night. I heard it on ESPN radio. It hasn't even been reported widely yet. Matt Schaub has been traded. The quarterback for the Texans has been traded to the Cleveland Browns for this year's third-round pick and for their number one wide receiver, Josh Gordon. That's right. The Browns first traded their best player, Trent Richardson. So who are their best players left on the team? Joe Thomas, Cam Jordan at the tight end position, and Josh Gordon at the wide receiver position. And they just traded Josh Gordon. But you can see what they did. They just lost Brian Hoyer for the year after beating the Bills. The Browns are 3-2 and sitting on top of the AFC North, but they've just lost their young quarterback for the season. So they had to make a move because they obviously have no faith in Jason Campbell or Brad Whedon. So they traded for Matt Schaub. And I guess it depends on how it works out for him. If he can adjust to the offense quickly, and if he can continue on hitting the tight end and the other receivers the way Hoyer was, then I think it'll be a good trade. But here's the problem with Schaub. He is not mobile. He is not a mobile quarterback. Brian Hoyer was. Brian Hoyer could throw on the run. He could make some stuff happen with his feet. There was that threat. I think the Browns are going to struggle a bit going forward. But I've been underestimating them for the past 3 weeks, so we'll see how they go ahead. Speaking of the Browns, they beat the Bills this week on Thursday, but they beat the Bengals last week. Again, did not see that one, and that was one of my losses. I don't think any of you will begrudge me for losing that one. I mean, how many of you actually had the Browns beating the Bengals? In what turned out to be an exciting game, the Lions also topped the Bears. We all knew the Lions were going to be tough in Ford Field, and I don't think anybody thinks that the Lions don't have the talent to compete at an elite level. Problem is all the mental mistakes and the lack of discipline with that team. How many times do you see them get penalized for 15 yards for just stupid, boneheaded plays? How many times do you see them out of position and give up a big play? So I had the Bears winning that one, but the Lions played tough. However, the Bears came storming back, and if that game was just a couple minutes longer, I think they would have pulled off the comeback. I had the Raiders as the upset. When I made that pick, I did not know Terrell Pryor was going to be out, but the Redskins pick up their first victory, so congrats to RG3. And in my other miss of the week, Patriots defeated the Falcons in Atlanta. I knew the Falcons were banged up, but I had more faith in Matt Ryan to get the job done. But you know what? He didn't. And if the Falcons don't make the playoffs this year, you could see some changes coming to Atlanta. Namely, they might bring in some competition at quarterback. They might bring in a new defensive or offensive coordinator. They might even start shopping for a new head coach, because in the NFL, the only thing that matters is playoff wins. Get to the playoffs and win in the playoffs. There are a lot of good coaches out there who have had good regular seasons that no longer have jobs. Look at Lovie Smith and the Bears. Perfect example. Coached for 9 seasons, went to a Super Bowl, went to 2 other NFC championships, couldn't win. Out of his 9 seasons, only made the playoffs a handful of times, usually missing the playoffs by 1 or 2 games. And he is no longer a head coach in this league. It's all about playoff wins. So Mike Smith better do something in Atlanta to fix that up. And some of the storylines coming out of that week, we just talked about the trade for the Browns. There's another trade that got announced this morning. 3-time Pro Bowler at middle linebacker John Beeson for the Carolina Panthers has been traded to the New York Giants. What the hell's going on? The NFL is doing its impression of the Major League Baseball and National Basketball Association. That's where you see all the trades. We don't see trades in football, especially high-profile players. And yet, we've seen Trent Richardson get traded, we've seen Matt Schaub get traded, and now we've just seen a 3-time Pro Bowler and John Beeson get traded. What is going on?
Holy cow!
I like it. I think it's interesting. It adds intrigue and intensity to the season, and it really shifts the dynamic in a lot of these conferences. I mean, the Texans were the favorite to win their conference. No one knew the Colts were going to be as strong as they are, and now they just traded their starting quarterback. The Browns, who weren't supposed to compete, just traded away their number 1 running back and their number 1 receiver and are sitting at 3-2 on the top of the AFC North. And now the Panthers, who were pretty solid on defense and who had spent a lot of money keeping that defense intact, just traded their 3-time Pro Bowler and middle linebacker. It defies convention. The only reason that I can think of for this trade is because John Beeson is due over $8 million this year, and the Panthers are over the cap. So they got to get under that cap before the deadline at the end of the season. But the main story coming out of this past week has been Josh Freeman and the Buccaneers. And he has been released. And you know what? Josh Freeman may not have handled this situation as well as he might have, but some team's going to pick him up because he's young and he's talented and he's athletic. And he's going to be better off for it because you know what? I blame this whole fiasco on Greg Schiano. This guy had a chip on his shoulder the size of a hefty bag coming out of Rutgers when he was hired by the Bucs. They brought him in to bring discipline, to bring intensity, and you know what? He brought too much. According to SportsIllustrated.com, Andrew Brandt reported that multiple players have been complaining to their agents over the atmosphere that Schiano has created, saying that he's created an atmosphere of fear and distrust. Apparently, the Buccaneers are taping their players on the sidelines during games to make sure that none of them are laughing or joking around during the game. They're basically spying on their own players. And you know what? Why is Schiano getting all this leeway? He was a 500 coach at Rutgers. He couldn't get it done at the college level. Now all of a sudden his style is supposed to translate to the NFL. His players are rioting against him. And the article in question said that Schiano is trying to get quote-unquote Schiano men, meaning that he is weeding out pretty much anybody that doesn't fit his mold. And it's not about money. They spent highly in free agency. Vincent Jackson, Carl Nicks, Darrelle Revis. But they just cut Josh Freeman. They got rid of Kellen Winslow Jr. They got rid of about half a dozen other players, good athletic players that are in their prime or still contributing at a high level. And you know what? There's no good reason other than they're not Schiano men. And if you got something to say about this and you've got some information that I don't have, please let me know. 630-534-0779 or tweet me at the CSBS because I don't understand why this guy has so much leeway. I was listening to sports radio last night and the anchor for the show put it in the best way. He said, Greg Schiano does not win enough to act this way. Bill Belichick gets to be antisocial and gets to be flat out rude to the media. You know why? Because he's been to 5 Super Bowls. That's why he gets to do it. Andy Reid, actually a very congenial guy, but he's very closed off with the media, especially, post-game conferences. You know why he gets to do it? Because he went to a Super Bowl and 5 NFC championships. That's why he gets to do it. Greg Schiano, he's done nothing. Nothing. He had a couple good seasons at Rutgers, but it was mostly mediocre. He's come to the NFL. He hasn't made the playoffs. He hasn't even put together a winning team. And he just got rid of what was supposed to be their franchise quarterback. So, I have nothing against the Buccaneers. I like the organization, and I wish them nothing but good fortunes. But that's not going to happen until Schiano's out of there, because I have no faith in him to get the job done, especially in a division where you've got talents like Drew Brees, Cam Newton, and Matt Ryan playing you 6 times a year. So good luck with that. Now, we're going to go to our Week 5 picks, because we're going to continue this roll I'm on. Right now, I am overall 46-23. So if you're listening to me for straight ups, you're actually going to be doing pretty good at the end of the season. We'll start off with a Thursday night game. I did have the Browns over the Bills. The fact was, after those 2 impressive wins in the back-to-back weeks, I'm converted. I believed in them. Of course, the first time I picked the Browns, they lose their quarterback for the year. So they probably don't want me picking them anymore. But they did pick up the victory, so I am 1-0 for this week. And if you doubt my picks, I do have a blog on Tumblr.com. Check it out. It's the CSBS, and that is my sports blog. All sports, all the time. I do my weekly picks every week before the Thursday night game. So check that out. But also coming up this week, we got some good matchups. We got the Patriots at the Bengals. I've been saying it all year. I do not trust the Patriots. I also said last week if they go into Atlanta and win, I'm going to start giving them some respect. But not that much. I'm going with the Bengals. The Bengals have been playing very poorly, and I don't understand it. They have got the talent. They've got solid coaching. They should be a better team than they've shown. The Patriots should be a lot worse than they've shown. I'm picking the Bengals But if the Patriots go undefeated again, I probably won't pick against them until they play the Broncos later in the season. So I got the Bengals tentatively to win that one. We got Lions at Packers. I so wanted to go with the Lions, but I can't. If they were at home, I might have gone with them. However, even at home, with Jay Cutler turning the ball over 4 times, they almost gave up that game in the end against the Bears. The Packers will not turn the ball over 4 times. Aaron Rodgers will move more consistently on that defense. And even if the Lions can put up 30, I'm betting the Packers can put up 40. So Packers at home over the Lions. We got Colts and Seahawks, which is probably the most exciting and probably the most difficult game to pick. It's in Indianapolis, in the Dome. I like the Colts, and I like it for one reason. Trent Richardson. The Seahawks, inexplicably, have had trouble guarding the run this year. They've had a lot of trouble stopping the rush. Frank Gore had a pretty decent game, all things considered, in that fiasco in the 49ers. Arian Foster had a good game last week against them. They're not stopping the run like a lot of people expected. So you know what? I'm going with the Colts. I think Richardson's going to have a big game, and we're going to talk about him more later when we get to our Fantasy 5. So Colts over the Seahawks in Indianapolis. We've got Ravens at Dolphins. Dolphins are coming off a week where they just got spanked by the Saints. But that was in New Orleans. Hardly any team beats the Saints in New Orleans. And the Ravens just lost to the Bills, who in turn lost to the Browns. The Dolphins are not as bad as they looked on Monday night. They are a good, solid team. And that defense is a lot better than it looked against Drew Brees. And they're going to be able to hold Flacco in check. I got the Dolphins winning in South Beach. Saints at the Bears, going with the Saints. I am iffy on the Bears this year. Their defense gives up a lot of yardage. They don't really stop anybody. What they do is get turnovers. So basically, the Bears defense, you're either going to score on them or you're going to turn it over against them. There's no middle ground. You don't see a lot of 3-and-outs. You don't see a lot of sacks. You don't see a lot of run stuffs. What you see is interception, fumble, or offensive touchdown. And if it comes into a shootout with the Saints, I don't like the Bears' chances. I think Cutler will play better. The Saints' defense is an aggressive one that gives an opponent opportunities to make plays down the field. That being said, I don't think that Bears' offense is quite at a point yet where they can take advantage of that aggressive style defense. So I'm going to go with the Saints to win in Chicago. Eagles at Giants. Here's an upset pick. I'm going to have the Giants picking up their first win of the year. That is not a good Eagles defense. Eli Manning can still put together really good games. And the Eagles' offense isn't looking as good as I think a lot of us thought it would. Yeah, they're going fast-paced, but Michael Vick is turning it over. He's turned into old Vick, where he can't hold on to the ball, and he's not accurate. This is an offense that is predicated on taking care of the ball and throwing accurate passes, and Vick is not doing either. So I'm going to have the Giants winning this one, despite their lack of offensive line. Chiefs at Titans should be a very underrated game. Both teams like to run the ball. Both teams like to play good defense, except the Chiefs are better at it. So even though they're on the road to Tennessee, I got the Chiefs winning. And here is my supreme upset pick of the week. The Jacksonville Jaguars get their first win of the season in St. Louis against the Rams. The Rams have been looking awful, just terrible. They're probably going to be without their starting running back, Darrell Richardson. They're probably going to start Jake Long, who was hurt in last week's Thursday game, who went off the field. But he's going to be slowed down by some soreness and some injuries, and who knows if he'll make it the whole game. Sam Bradford does not look good, and the Jacksonville Jaguars get Justin Blackmon back. And from all reports, he is in great shape. He's put on muscle, he's lost body fat, and he is in prime condition. I expect the Jaguars to be motivated by a boost to their passing game. I expect Maurice Jones-Drew to be able to run on the Rams, and I think the Jaguars pick up their first and perhaps only victory of the season. Going down to Arizona, we got the Cardinals against the Panthers. I like the Panthers. The Cardinals have been a major disappointment. Carson Palmer is not getting the job done, and I think we can all expect Bruce Arians to be drafting a quarterback in the draft this year. So we got Panthers winning that one, despite the fact that they just traded their 3-time Pro Bowl middle linebacker. Broncos at Cowboys, please. That Cowboys defense has been atrocious. And now they're going to play Peyton Manning and that three-headed wide receiver of doom? No. The Broncos are going to steamroll the Cowboys. Although, I do think the Cowboys will be able to put up some